This is going to be my next project. I'm so excited. Just got it home today. This is the face and the movement of a tall case clock from the late 1700s, mid to late 1700s. It's missing a couple things. The second hand dial is missing. The arbor's back there. And it didn't have anything up here. And when we got to moving the case and to bring it home, this little piece was back there. It says JERE Fellows. That's Jeremiah Fellows, Kensington. And I thought, okay, well, it's an English clock. No, it's Kensington, New Hampshire. So it is an American clock back from the Revolutionary War period. Calendar clock. Little spandrels on there that are gold. They're dirty right now, but they're going to be nice and shiny gold when I'm done with it. I've got some silvering to do here and around the chapter ring and the subsidiary ring for the second hand. So I'm going to get to do some silvering. It's got this nice brass plate that's super thick, and I'll measure how thick the plates are, and the nice spandrels for the plate. Big bell on top. It's got good sound. And somebody's already put this wire on here. There's a ring. Normally you just tie a knot in the wire, but this has a ring right there that the wire is tied to. And pulleys and all are with it. The weights are with it. They have a 13-pound stamp on each side. They're both the same. And I'm ready to get this face off because this calendar has come out of the little holder up here at the top. And so I want to see if I can get that on there where it's supposed to be and see if it's going to work for me. I'm going to end up having to build a stand to put this on to be able to test it and mess with it. And this is kind of wonky. There's screws that go through the plates to hold these. I'm pretty sure these are the gold plated ormolu type things that they did back then. And this one, you can see how much higher it is than this one. And I looked on the back, and there's another hole for the screw to go through, so it'll be easy enough to move it over where it's supposed to be and make it all look balanced. Original hands. And let's go look at the case. The case is laid out here in my upstairs hallway, up here with Cuckoo Alley. Keeping an eye on it. It's going to need some work, of course, because it's 250 years old. A little bit of work on the feet. The bottoms of these always take a beating, so it needs some work there because the frame that they build it with contracts and pops off the whatever you call it when you put the top over wood. I can't even think of it right now. But anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. So it's going to need some of that around the edges. Some work for the feet. And I will share with y'all a really good YouTube channel of a guy that works on these, and he's interesting to watch just because he's got such cool woodworking skills. He could replace these pieces. He could cut a whole new piece out and put in there, and you wouldn't even know that it had been replaced. He's really cool to watch, and I'll share that with you. Can't think of his name because I'm terrible with names. But it's walnut case, which is unusual. A little bit of mahogany inlay, and then the burled walnut inlay. That's what I was trying to think of, the inlay. It's got the key with the lock, and it's got a little sign that says this clock is the property of Mrs. C.H. McIntyre, and then it says LPK. I don't know what LPK means. That's what her little tag says. And then there's a servicing tag right there where that hole's punched out right in the middle of it that said that it was cleaned April 1924, and it would be interesting to see where, because this clock came from New Hampshire. So I thought this was all that was in the bottom of the clock. There's the big back of the clock right there, but these were down in the bottom of the clock when I felt around in the clock a couple weeks ago to see what might be down there in the bottom. And the person selling it was at an antique store. I've been there several years because that dial was missing off the front, the second hand, and the case work and stuff that needed to be done. Nobody had bought it because it looked bad without that dial at the top. It looked like something was missing. So we laid it down like this. We carried it out to the truck, laid it down in the truck, and the guy that owns the antique store says there's something metal sticking out. So this little crack down here, the little round medallion on the top of that face had laid down and got such an angle that the tiny bit of it was poking out the bottom. And that was when we discovered who made the clock and when it was made. So that's pretty cool. The hood is definitely going to need a lot of work. I thought it was missing 3 finials, but there was no finial over here. This is just where the wood, the little round thing they put in there. Why is my brain not working? I haven't eaten today. That's the problem. I got to eat better. Anyway, this is missing off the front. I'll have to replace this triangular piece, and I've got a very old piece of walnut to do that with, and then I'll just got to get a finial for the top. These little column pieces on the front, and then there's 2 on the back, but this one over here is missing. And I was able to find a couple on eBay. They were selling a pair of them that look just like this, and I'm hoping they're going to be the right length. They might not be long enough. We'll see when they get here. For $20, I'm like, I can't pass those up, so I'll make them work somehow. But the hood is the worst part. It's cracked in the middle right here, and then it's broken right there. That piece is gone, so this whole part just goes up and down. It's got had some broken parts on this decorative stuff, glued back poorly, so I am going to work on getting this case all back in order. And I'm excited to do it. I'm looking at that glass. Usually they are puttied in, but I think I saw when we were driving home, it's not puttied. It's just got the little wood strip on the side. A groove in the front for it to drop. Nope, a little wood thing all the way around on 3 sides. And it needs some putty. I'm going to put some putty on there. Possibly the glass was replaced and that's what they put in there to hold it. But yeah, this is going to be a big, long project. There'll probably be 4 or 5 videos on this thing because it's really cool. I really like it. So let's go take that face off and see what's inside. Alrighty, what do I do with my pliers? I just put this in the other screw hole that's back there, and it already looks more balanced, so looking better. This washer looks huge. I was able to find some information about this fellow, what years he lived, and that he was a very busy man. He was a blacksmith, a clockmaker, ran a tavern, was something with a deacon. Like he was very into a lot of stuff. And lived into his 80s, so that was cool. Magnetized pliers, everything's magnetized. I've got to run it through my demagnetizer. Alright, well that's a square hole in that. That's cool. It's got the black paint on the back like the hands, so it looks like it's original. Alright, square hole minute hand. Dirty, dirty. Looks like they used to be blued steel. Or painted brass, maybe. A little bit crooked. Somebody's bent the end of it a little bit. We can straighten that up. Square hour hand. That's cool, is it not? There's 2 square parts on here. The hour hand and the minute hand are square. So there's a big square out here. The hour tube. has a square cut on the end of it, and then the Mint Arbor has a square cut on it also. So that's cool. Alright, so that's off. So now let's turn it around and take the face loose. It should just be pinned on. I think I'm going to lay it down to do that. Alright, some of them are nails. That one at the bottom was a nail. This one's a nail. Instead of pins, this is a nail that's been bent. And then that's the pin I just put in there. They're all nails. This one's a nail with a washer. Look at that. That is really magnetized. And let's see if we can get this bent one out. In looking at the back like this, so these are the two holes I was talking about. There's two holes for the spandrels. And this one was in the top one, and that one was in... No, I'm looking at the wrong ones. These are the corner spandrels. So there's two holes for the top spandrels too, and this one was up in this other hole. So I moved it down to that hole. But you can see there's holes, extra holes at each spandrel site. So I think someone has changed those out at some point. That would be my guess. I don't know if I can even get this one out. Let me try something else. Alright, a wire bender worked pretty nicely on that to straighten that nail out. Maybe I can get it out now. Yes. So those will definitely be replaced with some taper pins. Alright, now what's holding my movement? Some big pins down here. Well, I took some parts off, and my face came off. I didn't loosen the ones I thought I was loosening. So anyway, the chapter ring's off now for me to clean. Someone has cleaned without taking it off, so there's lots of good brass cleaner back behind everything. And that, I think, is the lever that makes my calendar turn. And I don't know what it's doing out front here, but there it is. Alright, let me try these other pins and see if that takes off what I wanted to take off, which was the face. So, yes, these ones up here. That's got an actual pin in it. This one's bent. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it out of there. It's super long. Let me get my pliers with teeth. Okay, got it. Look how long that thing is. Alright, good thing about a desk chair, I can just spin it around and work on it. Let's get the one up here. I pressed it in really well. I'm going to get these last two out and then I'll meet you back. Got those two out. This should let it still be on the seat board and come at me. And there's the front of the movement. I haven't seen it before, but we're going to pull up some online to compare the movements that he made. Yeah, that's why. Okay. I don't know. There's the little pin that turns the calendar. I'm curious to get into this. It's going to be fun. So this is the calendar wheel, and it's got this piece on here, but then it's got these little pieces on here, and this is not in that one. It's not like up there where it needs to be. Oh, isn't that pretty? So there's the calendar ring. It'll have to be resilvered also. It's still got some silver, mostly brass looking through there. I don't know what you do for months that don't have 31 days, if there's a way to make it go. Maybe that's what the other arm is for, but I don't think you could get to that. This little arm right here, I don't think you could get to it. So this was just sitting in here, but it doesn't touch all three of these. Something has gotten bent or moved. I feel like that one should be down more to hold it. Anyway, it will be interesting. There's 2 pins for this, for the subsidiary ring. And his, I noticed, he puts, like a lot of them have 10 second, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. He only does 15, 30, 45, and 60. I could not find other clocks that had those instead of the every 10 second, that they just did every 15 seconds. It's beautiful. Beautiful brass under there. There's a little bit of a pattern to this part. Oh, look at the little ping holes all around there to hold the legs that come out. And then that is that one up there. So there's no reason it shouldn't. There it goes. It swung down. So I can get the calendar on there where it will stay. Cool. Now it's ready to go. No, I don't have it quite adjusted right because it's not in the hole. It's close to the right hole. Might be alright. I think it's alright. That is cool. So that's all it needed, was bending that down to hold it in place. So today is January the 30th. I'm going backwards. It goes this way. Alrighty. So we will set it on there. Boop. And let's see what that... I'm sorry, I've got the off camera. I got it so zoomed in. It just turns nicely now that that top one is hanging down. So the little button on the bottom wheel, I'll show you, it's just going to click and pull it along. So anyway, we're going to just set this aside on today's date to remind us when we started all this. This is going to look so pretty. Just put this on my cuckoo stand, still on the board, and hung the weight on it to see what it would do. And now I know what that little piece goes to that fell off. That's the thing that makes this work. Must have it on backwards. Let's take the weight off. I may have to use some lighter weights while I'm testing things. Those are heavy. Okay, let's try this way. It's got a square hole. I'm glad that fell off at home and not any other time. Alright, so with it that direction, it goes behind this. Lets it go down in there. Let's see what happens with the weight. Goodness gracious. I'm going to have some muscles at the end of this if I keep taking this weight off and on. There we go. Nice. So that was 12. It fell all the way over as far as it could go. This was against this. And it did 12 times, so that's good. This arm that comes here is what falls. It's on the other end of this rack. This arm comes out and there's a pin on it and it falls down. This is your snail on here. So that falls up with this little spring that's on the side, up into that, and pushes your rack over. So that's pretty neat. And then this is the date wheel with the little pin on it that turns that ring that I showed you. And the rest should be pretty much the same as what we're used to. A lift and a lock lever. And an intermediate wheel. And we'll check out the inside parts when we get to the inside. Taking a bunch of pictures. I opened the little loops and untied the knots so that I could get it off of the board. I've still got to build something to set this on to be able to test it when I'm done. Taking lots of pictures. I've noticed this looks like the bell is brass. This part of the lift lever is brass. These parts look like they might be steel. And the arbors are steel, but most of the clock is brass, so that's pretty cool. When you set this up, this pin needs to be, this is 12 o'clock, it's going to be straight across from there. If you have it in a different position, potentially this can hit on this as it's going by, so you want to make sure it's farthest away, and that should make it go off at about 12. Lots of thumbprints right there, right there, right there, right there. Over here, whoever worked on it last. And I did notice there's a crack that the owner said that they could not keep it running. When I was in there, they had the thing hanging like this and the weight hanging from here with the little S-hook. And so once I flipped it over and put it on the pulley system, put the weight down here, it was running and it chimed. It didn't have a pendulum, and so it was running quickly, and so it chimed within just a couple minutes of me making it run again. But I need to know whether this is had a bushing or what, because it looks like the case is cracked right there in the middle. If not, we'll probably have to put a bushing right there. I've checked it for in shake. Everything looks good. I've scraped some old oil out of the pivot holes, but it's going to clean up really nicely. So let's get it off of here. It's got some just hand threaded big nut on there. That's pretty cool. So I've been trying to read up on this clock designer, and I think I said before that there were only 22 in existence. There are 22 numbered ones. This one is not numbered. And the numbered ones are from 1784 and later. So I think the earliest numbered one is number 10, and it was 1784. So this should be a 1770s clock. I believe this clockmaker was born in 1729, so he would have been in his 40s. So maybe in the 1760s, 1770s he started with clocks. He did make some of his own cases. There was also a case maker in Kensington, New Jersey that sometimes he would buy cases from, but it would make the clock be $25 more expensive to have the case made by the case maker than if Mr. Fellows made the case. The seat board has seen better days. This, I think, is original, this little slope on the side. But it's got a crack through the middle. It's pretty dug in right there. Got a chunk missing over here. Bunch of screw holes. These clocks are really face heavy with the metal front on it, and so this one has been screwed down to the case. Instead of just being able to slide this out, it had to be unscrewed to come out. But that's okay, as long as it keeps it safe. Might be time to flip the backboard over just to give us a better working surface. What do you think about that? Alright, so I need to get all this wire off of here. I can't lay it that way. There's a click right here. I'm going to release the click and get this wire unwound. And I got to find some way to be able to lay this down. This comes off. Oh, that doesn't come off. Does it? Yes, I got a removable bridge. I can take off the bell on this bridge, but I want to mark it because right now it does want to run. Let me find a wheel here. So I want to make a little mark so that I can get this lined back up in about the same place. I'll be right back. I said this brass looks like it's, this bell looks like it's brass. It looks like it's cast iron that's got some brass plating on it because some of it's off over here. And what I noticed when I was spinning this around, this looks like possibly where they cast it, that it was a flaw, but it also might be where the bell has hit on it for many, many, many years because it hits just right at the bottom. So dirty it's stuck in the there we go. That's pretty grungy. Definitely will be hand polishing all of these pivots and burnishing all the pivot holes. This type of pendulum, the suspension spring just sits on the top. Like it goes through right here, but then the pin just sits up here. There's no hole that you put the pin through. It just rests on the top. Okay, let me get the bell out of the way, and then I can get this verge out. That's pretty cool. Golly, they even oiled that. Okay. Just sticking that back in there because in case the screws are a little bit different. I'm sure they were all handmade. Might have a little bit of differences in them. Alright, let's work this out of here. It does have the Graham deadbeat escapement. It's pretty dirty, but it's pretty polished right where it's been striking. It's kind of teardrop shaped. It's like just big enough to get this foot through there. Pivots look decent, other than crud built up on them. But this is just dirt on here. Look. It's just years of crud built up on it. It's not black normally. Alright, now let me get this stuff unwound. I'm ready to get it out of there. So the click is kind of interesting. I'll show you better pictures of it when I get the movement apart. It's a brass piece that comes down, holds a separate click over here that's riveted on. I thought it might have a crack right there in the wheel, but it's not. It's just some crud. So I'm just going to hold it up so I can free spin this and get all this off of here. So I'll be back in a moment. I just looped these around and contained them like they are, because the only way to get them out, you have to have these out and take the little winding thingies apart. So I made some new clock solution. It is heating up. It's 11 degrees Celsius. It's got to get to 35, so that's going to take a little while. It's snowing outside. It's been snowing for about 6 or 8 hours, and it's supposed to snow all day. So we've got about 2 or 3 inches so far. We're going to probably get about 6 inches altogether. So it's a good day to stay in and work on clocks. Let's see, I had a small wire bender. Not small enough. Hang on. So these wire benders come in a set of 3 when you buy them, and buy 2 sets, because whatever wire size you need one to hold and one to twist, and so you're always trying to hold it with something and twist it with one of these. So get you 2 sets while you're getting. And that broke off. Okay. Not surprising, but not a big deal. Because the wire can be replaced. I don't know why it's not a pin. It wouldn't interfere with anything in the case if this had a pin. That one either. That's got a pin, and that one had a pin, but these 2 have wire that's twisted around. But I took pictures. I'll put it back the way it was. It's trying to turn up on me. And that one broke. Okay. Need a smaller screwdriver to get in there. Alright, so we got a domed washer and a flat washer, it looks like, with lots of grease under them. I don't know why you would put that on this piece. Alright, and then just a washer here. Looks like a slotted domed washer. So, how can we get this off of here? That's going to lift, but it's going to hit that. This won't come off with that there. I think everything's got to try to come off at the same time. That has some solder right here, holding that to this lift lever. The one I saw online, it was the same movement, so it was definitely the same maker. Well, can't say that, but probably the same maker. But it looked like the end of this was broken off, which has your little lifting, this is what hits inside here to tell it how many times to gong, that little tab. So it looked like the end of this was broken off on the one I saw online. Once again, square at the top, which is weird because you got a round bushing here, but he would square it up to put it through the hole. So that's pretty cool. This is screwed together, and that's a great big washer on the bottom. If I want to take that off, it's got a little tiny screw, and this slides off. Probably will take it apart just because of how it's designed. It's going to get clock cleaning solution down under it. But I'll decide that before I put it in. And this is like the most valuable piece on this thing, because a lot of times when the clock didn't work, they would just take this off, and then the clock would run fine, just not the calendar function. It's just an added stress. And so I was happy to see this on there. Alright, and this, when we put it back together, we put it just falling off of that right there. This intermediate wheel is your strike activating system. There's not an arm, there's not a cam on this center arbor. This activates your strike. Very important piece, can't lose that. It's got a square hole in it and a square arbor poking through. Round arbors everywhere else except the winder and the lift arm. Oh, I missed a pin. Big thumbprint right there. This is kind of angled out. I don't know if it's supposed to be bent at that angle, but it was working at that angle, so before I automatically just straighten that, I will check to see if it needs to be straightened, and I'll check the contact surfaces of all the levers, make sure that they don't have any grooves in them. Alright. Big tall arbor. I mean, it only contacts this much at the end. That's how much surface wear you can see, but it's super tall. This is that crack I was telling you about. It may not be a crack. It may be just from when they poured the plate, just a little defect right there. That's what I'm hoping. That looks like brass coated steel, because you can see where it's worn in the bottom there. It looks like silver instead of brass colored, and what was rubbing on it was possibly silver brass coated, so I don't know. There's my washer for lifting the hands. It's pretty flat. May need a little bit more oomph to it. I don't know. When I turn it upside down, it's got a fair amount of arch. We'll have to see. Alright, so this is just a spring for that lever that I showed you, the arm that drops the rack. So that can come off. It's just a hand twisted wire with a little, got a thing that goes through the hole to give it the friction that it needs. A loop in there to hold your spring. Possibly they had it at a different spot before, because there's 2 loops in there, or maybe it was too long and that's how they shortened it up. They put a loop in it and then just put a bend on the end to hook onto the lever. Alright, I think we're ready to take the pins out of this plate. Nice heavy plate. I'm going to weigh it. We're going to measure how thick it is and weigh it. My escape wheel wanted to come out with it. It's dirty. Very grungy on the end. Needs to be nice and polished. Good bit of crud on the inside too. So there's the inside of the plate. I'm enjoying just checking out these parts from so long ago. Let me get a scale and the calipers. Just this one plate weighs 1 pound, 2.8 ounces, or 532 grams. This defect from the pouring does not affect the hole. It doesn't go all the way through. It's not a crack in the plate. Maybe it goes all the way through right there. But anyway, there's the pivot hole right there. And we'll look at it under the microscope, make sure it still looks good. But the plate thickness is 3.14, 2.9092. It's different thicknesses because it's poured. It's not exactly the same. 3.2, 3.16. 2.9, 3.0 even, 2.92, so about 3 millimeters. There's a little bit of markings on this one. There's an S marked on this one. There's a T marked on this one, but there's another little symbol right here. It looks like a pound sign. And then a kind of a Z with a curly Q. It kind of looks like that. And I looked online, couldn't find any matches, but since I've been in healthcare, I thought it kind of looks like an ounce symbol. This is an ounce symbol. It looks very similar to that. So I think that it was saying it was the cat gut was the 1 ounce cat gut. I don't know. That's my theory. So gunky, they don't want to come out. Alright, so there's my click. I was able to put it on top of the spring and unwind. So it's normally like so, with the spring down there holding it. I'll have to readjust the spring after I get it cleaned and put back together. This looks like it should pop off, but it looks like it has a pin in it. So maybe I gotta pull that pin out and then pop that off of there. And there's your knot through the hole right there. Let me get some tweezers. Took a quick break to check the weather. It's always so quiet when it snows. I don't think we'll be getting out the gate anytime soon. It's got ice under the snow. Didn't even really want to melt off. The driveway comes up and then around and up here. And it was all icy and slick before this snow came down. It's pretty though. Alright, this is just my spool for my wire. I needed something that could hold that big arbor and be small enough around, so that seems like it's going to work. I'll take this pin out. Let's slide that off. I just measured this wire and took a picture of which way it's wrapped. It'd be kind of hard to mess it up because your clicks only turn one way, so you're going to click and wind, and it should wind the right way, but I took a picture just in case. Alright, so I've got one hole there, and I guess there's a hole down there. Don't see much of a hole that this went into. Maybe they just kind of tapped it right there. Alright, so that should let me, well, that'll let me clean it. That doesn't get it open. I guess I don't have to open it. Few little ends in there where people have cut it off. Anyway, I just measured this, and I'm going to put some mini blind cord on here instead of this brass wire that's fraying. I've got mini blind cord on that wooden plate movement that I've got, and it's got super heavy weights on it. The mini blind cord goes 35 pounds for the skinniest stuff, so I measured the thickness of this. It doesn't sit down in the grooves super well. As soon as you take the weights off, it wants to unwind itself and tangle up. So the mini blind cord does not have the recoil. It won't try to do that, unwind. It should sit down in these grooves a little bit better. So I'm going to measure these grooves a little bit. This is 1.56 roughly and sticks up a good bit. So maybe the 1 millimeter cord, which I think is rated about 50 pounds, and the weights are 13 pounds each, so that should be sufficient. So if I thought if I took this apart, I could take a cap off and get to that, but I can't. I'm going to have to fish it out of there, so I'll be back after I get this out, because it's not wanting to come out. Alright, well, I couldn't get it out. It frayed enough, it finally just broke off, and it's in there. I'm not going to put this in a solution. I'm going to clean this, but I'm not going to dunk it because I can't get all the liquid out of that hole. Alright, for the strike side, we have a nice fan. It's got a little cut in the middle out of it for this little piece to go across and put some pressure. There's our warning pin. 1, 2, 3, fourth wheel. Third wheel. Don't see anything on it. It's got the square arbor with some threads on it. Looks like they put a screw thread and then filed it square, so there's some screws edges on it. Second wheel lifts up the gong hammer. this guy. And I'll do the same thing, taking it apart and getting this off. Alright, then we got the escape wheel. Look how long that is. That's the minute arbor, center arbor. They were made to last. I tell you what, they're in good shape. Alright, one screw there. And I think once I take this spring off, that's really cool. That's got the little spade on the end of it. I think it will come off all the way when I unscrew it, and then, oh, that lifts off even before I take it off. So there's my hammer. Little wedge shape on there. You can see it's barely been hitting right there at the very end. I'd like to get it hitting more in the middle and flatter instead of just hitting on one corner of one edge. But we'll see when we put it in. There's the where the spring hits. No. Oh, that's where it hits right here when it recoils. So there's a little bit of a groove right there. One more screw and then we can go clean these parts up. So the plates are too big to fit in my ultrasound. I'm not going to try to ultrasound them. I will clean them with the warm clock solution, some Dawn dish soap, all that good stuff, and get all this old grease off. Well, it doesn't go back in the hole, so I guess I'll leave it off. Alright. That's most everything. There's one more screw. That comes off too. Okay. This thing that the hammer hits against when it recoils. That gives it the bounce. So the spring, when it comes forward, it would just rest against the clock, but it kind of hits this, goes a little bit more and hits the clock, and this kind of pushes it back some. Alright, let's see if it's been long enough to heat up my solution yet. I have spent a couple of days so far working on this movement, cleaning it, checking everything. Since the plates would not fit in my ultrasound, I just cleaned them in the ultrasound solution, and that oil is so hard. Here's a piece I haven't cleaned yet. Like, here's a piece I cleaned by hand on one side, and the other side still has all the black hard stuff on it. Like, this stuff does not come off. If you take a toothpick and put it in the pivot holes and rub, you get some of it off, but it does not come off all the way. So if I can't get down in the pivot holes to be able to do that and scrape on it with my fingernail and stuff, it's halfway clean. So I have resorted to all kinds of stuff to clean these plates out. I have not used these before. These came with the clock tools that I got online, a collection from somebody else, and I had to look online and even see what they were. I don't know. There's a little wheel at the top right here, little handle, nice little set. Didn't really know what it was, and Time Savers called it a countersink and burnishing set, and this is the first time I've used it to fit down in these holes and scrape that old oil out that was dried and hard all around the oil sinks. And then these are little 8-sided pieces that fit in the pivot holes that kind of scrape the old oil off the inside of the holes without removing a whole bunch of metal. This is some spare parts that I've got for making holes to replace bushing, put bushings in. So I did not use those, but I used these, and I used wood to get all the old oil off as much as I could. And I've handled these plates a lot, so they're going to get cleaned again. And there's still a lot of stains from oil that's run and stuff. So I'm going to put these in my ultrasound after I get done. I'm going to probably take the Howard feeding my, well, that's kind of sharp right there. I need to file that. I'm going to take the Mother's Mag and aluminum polish and clean these up, and then I'm going to put these in the ultrasound and give them a final cleaning. I've been going through and polishing all my pivots by hand, putting the pieces in one of my pin vices and turning them on a redstone and polishing them up real good. And so I've done the strike side. I still got to do the time side. I've done the time side. I've still got to do the strike side. My barrels came out nice. I did end up putting them in the ultrasound, and then filled the holes, holding my fingers over them, over the other holes, filled them with water, rinsed them good, and then filled them with rubbing alcohol and shook all that out. And it actually melted the catgut that was in there and made it come out through the hole, so that was pretty cool. So I got them empty. That one's got the metal on the inside of it, but this one came out empty. I can still hear this one rattle a little bit with that one piece of metal I had to cut the wire. So I'm just getting back to these and getting them back together on the strike side. And I've been just double checking everything. The rivets are a little bit loose, so I'm tightening them up a little bit, and then, you know, adjusting my spring before I put it back on here so that it's good and snug, and then going around see if I can catch it here. And then going around and checking each click and making sure it seats right. I gotta get the little pin in it to hold it together, but I'm not ready to do that yet. So I'm checking the click on each tooth and making sure the teeth are seating right. Like, I'm being really careful with this clock and taking my time working on it. I will probably bend the spring down just a hair. You'll hear a difference in the way the click sounds. So it depends on how much click you want. So I feel like that's a little better seating. Gonna hold it in there better. So now I'm ready to put my pin back in. Slip this back on. Line up my hole and put the pin back in to hold it all together. And then I'm going to polish all these pivots and get it all back together. But that's where I am right now. And while I've got it apart, I can count the teeth. So to get my pendulum length, I don't have a pendulum. So the NAWCC, I'll put the link in my description of the video in case you need it. They have a calculator to get the beats per minute and the pendulum length. So you count your escapement wheel, your third wheel, and your second wheel teeth, and also the pinion leaves of the escapement wheel and the third wheel. Escapement, fourth wheel, third wheel, second wheel. Something's off here. Center pinion. Hang on. So this is the site, the index.nawcc.org, calc pendulum length.phs. When you come to this page, it defaults to 5 wheels. This one has 4 wheels in the time train. That was what was throwing me off, because I had clicked 4 wheels. Now watch what happens right here. When you click 4 wheels, can't get my mouse to work. There we go. 4 wheels. This section grays out, so you don't need numbers for it. So you count the teeth in your escape wheel and the pinion leaves, the third wheel and the pinion leaves and the center wheel teeth. And so I did all that and plugged it in, and it came up with this 39.2 inches for a pendulum length, or 99.6 centimeters. So I've looked for a pendulum online. There were a couple of antique pendulums that were ridiculous, like $250 to $300. Time Savers had one that was an antique style, has a 2.5 pound cast iron weight with the brass front and the proper length. So, and it also had the suspension spring and block and all that stuff. So I've ordered that because it was $48. So that was way more in my price range. And since the pendulum is inside of a closed door, it wasn't that big a deal what it really looks like. So that's what I've been up to, ordering parts. I've ordered the mini blind material for this. I ordered the 1.2 millimeter mini blind material, and that'll hold up to 80 pounds. It was very reasonably priced. I measured the length of the other wires. They were each 10 feet, so I needed 20 feet of mini blind cord, and I think I got 100 yards for not much, like maybe $30 for 100 yards of it, and it'll last anything I ever want to fix. I can fix all my mini blinds and clocks that come in. But to get that measurement, I had mini blind material on the clock in the kitchen. Clock from the 1870s or so, wood plate movement. It has the same type of winding system, key wound with the cord catgut that would have been on the weights previously. And also, I figured I could maybe borrow the pendulum for a little bit and test my clock, but this pendulum is really hard to get off. I have to take the clock off basically to get it out of there, and so I haven't done that yet, but I measured this cord to get an estimate. And these weights are not as heavy. These weights are cast iron, and those weights are lead, and they're 13 pounds each, so I got the heavier. This was right about 1 millimeter. I got the 1.2 millimeter to hold heavier weights. And then also, this little S-hook disappeared on mine in transit somehow. So this little collection is parts I haven't cleaned yet. Definitely need to clean that up. This is basically what was all over everything. It is not going anywhere anytime soon. Anyway, so the S-hooks disappeared in transit. They weren't pinched shut, and we looked in the truck. I carried the movement on my lap on the way home, about 50-mile drive, and the hood, we put the hood inside the truck because it was kind of flimsy. We put the case in the back of the truck and like put bubble wrap and moving blankets, and then strapped it down so it wouldn't scratch up the case and wouldn't slide around. And so I don't know where these S-hooks ended up. We've gotten 5.5 inches of snow since then the next day, starting that afternoon after we got home, and they could be under the snow in the driveway from when I carried the movement in. They could be in the truck somewhere, I don't know, but I made some. I took some pivot staff and bent some S-hooks, which it's hard to bend. It's hard to shape those. It's much harder metal. I have these that I could use possibly too, they're a hardened steel variety, and then they would look okay, but they would fall off. I mean, I can pinch that shut where they won't fall off, and that would be the new thing for the clock. If you don't have a pivot wire, you can bend. This is a much softer wire. You could bend whatever you want with it and get a nice S-hook, the shape you want, because it was really hard to bend this. They're not exactly the same. They're close enough for me. But you can take a softer heavy gauge wire and bend your S-hook and then heat it and let it cool slowly. Heat it in a torch and get it red hot, and then just set it down and let it cool slowly, and it would harden it possibly enough to hold those 13-pound weights. But anyway, I made a couple S-hooks. So these are the parts I still got to clean. I cleaned this by hand. I haven't like cleaned the whole thing. I cleaned this pivot hole by hand, and I'm still I looked under the microscope. I can't get all the black stuff out. This was really soiled, and so that's what made me decide that it's all going to go through the ultrasound a second time after I've polished all my pivots and cleaned all my pivot holes and checked for end shake, and I made sure that I didn't have any bushings I needed to put in. There's been a few bushings put in. There's been some bushing holes that were pinged, and one of those had a high spot on it. I've smoothed it off, and once I get done polishing these other set of pivots, I'm going to run it all through the ultrasound again just to get all my hand oils off, because there's no way to do all that stuff without handling the pieces a lot. So I don't want to leave more fingerprints even after cleaning. The other fingerprints are still visible on there, so that's why I'm going to take the Mother's Mag and aluminum and polish it up and see if I can finish getting those off, and then I will get some gloves before I handle any of these parts again. I'm just trying to take my time and enjoy this piece that was handmade so many years ago. And one more tool I didn't mention. These are burnishing tools. They're made for going in the pivot holes and burnishing and polishing them up. I think wood does a really nice job most of the time if you don't have this super hard dried in oil. But these have a little tip on them and are designed to go down in there and just polish up. And that's what I did with all of them, with the bigger one and a smaller one, trying to polish up these holes. And some of them came out okay. I looked under the microscope, you know, put my finger under, shined it at every angle to see if I got all the chunks of old oil out. Some of them didn't clean up as well. And so hopefully putting it in the ultrasound, I'm going to have to do it like set it in, do half, and then flip it over and set it in and do half. That's where a bigger ultrasound machine would come in handy. But I've only a couple of times had plates so big that they wouldn't go in my ultrasound machine. So if I ever need to upgrade, I will get one that's a little bit bigger probably. But anyway, I got to polish all these pivots. Be back in a moment.